Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. Your host with the moster is me, Dusty O'Connell. Joining me is a man who I'm sure has a lot of opinions we haven't heard yet about Norv Turner. He's our usual co-host and writer and analyst for coldomaha.com and 1500ESPN.com in Minneapolis. And he's Arif Hassan. How you doing, Arif?
I am doing excellently. How are you?
Well, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, actually. I was treated to possibly the most exciting single game of baseball that I have ever seen in my entire life last night. And although I generally have mixed feelings about the Cubs, last night I was firmly in their corner. And
mixed feelings? What are your mixed feelings about the Cubs? What do they do to you?
I mean, nothing really. It's just so it's, for me, it's guilt by association. There's a couple of people who I know personally who are big Cubs fans, and seeing the Cubs lose would bring me joy because of those people's disappointment.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, but last night, I mean, I couldn't help myself. That was phenomenal, and it had everything. It had, pitching battles. It had some of the best pitchers in the entire league, like going at it. In crazy, John Lester pitching in the middle of a game. What? This is crazy. Like, if only you could see that sort of thing in the regular season. And then, of course, the rain delay, which was the perfect length of rain delay. Like, it gave everybody a chance to order a pizza or get a snack or whatever. Well, and honestly, like, one of the best things about the game was that it provided me an opportunity to forget about a different, less exciting game that I watched on Monday.
Yeah, no, that was something else, wasn't it?
It was not the Vikings that we had been primed to expect. And I guess we can talk more about that in a minute. But in the meantime, I wanted to say a quick thank you to all the listeners who have contributed to Norse Code and enabled us to pay for all the operating costs and all the bells and whistles on this show, such as they are, from donations from listeners like you. And also, like James Roberts, who is our newest Patreon sponsor. He gives us $3.51 a month. a little Loch Ness Monster bonus there, I guess. So do your part to help keep the Loch Ness Monster at bay and keep Norse Code on the air. Go to patreon.com/Norse Code like James did. Or you can go to paypal.me/Norse Code and make a one-time donation in any amount you desire and support your number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. Anyway, I think we were into, well, okay, so you had said specifically that the offensive line performance that we saw 2 weeks ago against the Eagles was unlikely to be replicated. That it was probably a like historically bad in terms of the season performance. And it appeared this week that the Vikings offensive line itself disagreed with you.
Well, okay, so if you're blaming me, that would be accurate. But second, there are some elements there that actually did bear out. So, for example, Jake Long got a lot better in this game than he did in the previous game, which is like not a high bar to clear because he gave up pressure on 30% of his dropbacks. But he gave up 1 sack and 2 hurries. The sack was pretty obvious. Everyone was like pretty upset about it. But for the most part, he gave up 3 pressures. Alex Boone gave up no pressures. Berger gave up 1 pressure. It was a sack. And the left side of the line held up really well. To have 3 offensive linemen over the course of 49 or so dropbacks, only give up 4 pressures. That's fantastic. That's exactly what you want out of that's much better than average. That's actually very good for an offensive line in the NFL. So from that perspective, they did pretty well. Brandon Fusco in the first half didn't give up a single pressure. In the second half, he gave up 5. That's a lot. For one person over the course of 20 snaps. That's abysmal, actually. And then TJ Clemmings. Part of my optimism was built into the idea that the coaches would play the best right tackle at right tackle. I don't think they did that. They played Jeremiah. They should have played Jeremiah Searles, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong because they have a lot more information than me. and I've been like pretty consistently wrong about stuff this year. But like I think that Searles has showed a lot more at right tackle with less help than TJ Clemmings has had. Than Clemmings has had at right tackle. Long has played really well at left, or not really well. Long has played, over the course of 2 games in a way that I think justifies further play at left tackle from him. Alex Boone has played really well over the past couple of weeks. Joe Berger, he's not playing as well as he did last year, but he's still playing at a very, very high level for a center. Brandon Fusco is kind of weird. Over the past couple of weeks, he's actually played okay. And, of course, as soon as I point this out during the game, that he was actually playing all right during the game, he, of course, gives up 5 pressures. But for the most part, I think that his performance is further indication that there's probably some stability in the future for the offensive line. And, we're not so beholden or stuck to TJ Clemmings on the right, and you take advantage of the player that you traded for. I think they traded a 6th-round pick for him. I think that this offensive line can go from like the worst in the NFL, or one of the worst in the NFL, to like pretty acceptable. So I'm still optimistic, but that you're right, they gave up a lot of pressure.
Well, yeah, and it also seemed like in this game the defense couldn't capitalize as well as they have on other teams' quarterbacks. Like Jay Cutler returned and was a pretty acceptable version of Jay Cutler. I mean, it seemed like we couldn't get too much. I mean, we hurried him, it seemed like, but not to the point where he was throwing badly or getting sacked. And I mean, it just seemed like we were sleepy out there on both sides of the ball. Like we weren't the crisp Vikings we've seen all season. What do you attribute that to?
I don't really know what the reason for it is defensively. I do know, if you take a look at the defense and think of it as like that was a good play for defense, that wasn't a good play, that was a good play. If you add it all up, the defense ended up having a lot more good plays for the defense than bad plays. And I think if you compare it to like an average defensive performance between 2 average teams, the Vikings would have come out ahead. But that's obviously not what the impact was, what it felt like, because the bad plays they gave up were significantly worse than most of the bad plays that they have. Like, in the past, they've given up like some 60-odd yard, run after catches or runs, right? So there was a 67-yard run or 69-yard run from Jordan Howard. There was also that catch and run from Ryan Matthews for 25 yards. There was also that catch and run from Derrick Henry, for some 60-odd yards. I mean, this has happened. But it was particularly bad for the defense because the mistakes they continued to make, which, again, not very many mistakes, the mistakes they continued to make ended up having a pretty huge impact. If you think about it this way, it looks like the Vikings ended up having, a poor game against the run. Jordan Howard, meets a Bears record, I think, for most yards from scrimmage, since like Gale Sayers in 1966 or something insane like that. And you're like, and the Vikings were, absolute crap defending the run. And it's not really true. On most runs, they did actually do a pretty decent job. I mean, if you take a look at things like success rate, the Vikings came out as an above-average defense in success rate. If you take a look at how the Vikings did in terms of like yards per attempt outside of that 67-yard or 69-yard run, they held them to 3.2 yards a carry. And it's not as if those 69 yards like didn't happen. They obviously did. They ended up in 3 points, not 7, thankfully. And it's like a part of the running game. But in terms of evaluating the defense and trying to figure out sort of like going forward, what it means. Yeah, I think that the defense, I think that there's like a lot to salvage there. I do think that like the biggest problems on the defense were certainly not the defensive line. I thought that all 3 linebackers played pretty poorly. I know Pro Football Focus said that Eric Kendricks at least played well in coverage, and that might be true. But definitely against the run, they were all pretty poor. Chad Greenway was a liability in pass coverage again. Anthony Barr had another bad game. Hopefully he can turn it around, sometime soon. And then, Jaron Kersnop being there instead of Andrew Sendejo, contributed to that big run. So there were some individual performances that were at play. And I think one of the differences between, a couple of individual performances being bad for the Vikings in this game than, in other games is that the Bears were certainly willing to target those underperforming players, or those players were able to take advantage of those opportunities. Because Chad Greenway had a bad game against the Eagles, but Darren Sproles dropped the ball twice, or Ryan Matthews dropped the ball once in coverage again, or in a route where Greenway was covering him. So it didn't get taken advantage of as easily. And they didn't target, Jaron Kearse in the Eagles game. They certainly targeted Jaron Kearse. It seemed like they're running to his side of the field and stuff in this game. So a couple of individual performances, I think, dragged down some really stellar performances across the defensive line and the secondary.
Now, one of the things that confused me in this game, and it seemed like a moment where we kind of gave up a lot of, I guess, momentum, if we agree that it exists for a moment. It was in the first half when we were on 4th and 3, and we didn't go for it. We were, close to midfield, and I believe it was 3-0. We were just down by one field goal, and punting there just seemed like, I don't know. It seemed soft, and it seemed like a situation that we could have, otherwise picked up. I mean, was that on coaching? Was that just, am I too used to having Adrian Peterson or Jerick McKinnon around to, make those kinds of plays? Like, what do you think that had any, significant impact on the game?
Significant, probably not. I am inclined to disagree with it. I know that the New York Times 4th Down bot actually agreed with the decision to punt. I was actually really surprised by that. But I figured, there's a decent chance that, given Jeff Locke's performance this year, that he has the ability to pin them inside the one. I think that was the one where Trey Waynes ended up not downing it inside the 5, but he ended up creating a touchback, in which case it was obviously not worth it, right? Because he only gained 20 yards or something like that.
25 yards or something. Yeah.
So, in that case, it's not worth it. I kind of wanted to go for it, but I was kind of okay with the decision not to, just in general, because, 3 yards is really hard for this offense sometimes,
It sure seemed that way. It sure seemed that way.
So, I don't know if that had as big of an impact as, some of the other things that happened in the game. The Cameron Meredith reception that Terrence Newman gave up, for example, had a big impact. Obviously, the 67-yard or 69. I keep on calling it a 67-yard run. Don't know why. The 69-yard run from Jordan Howard had a big impact. And I think the misplaced pass from Sam Bradford to Stephon Diggs really early in the game that was almost a sure touchdown, I think had an enormous impact. And I think that, everyone's blaming Bradford, and I think that it's true that he shares the majority of the blame. If you wanted to, parse it out, 75-25 or 80-20 or something like that. But you do got to point out, hey, there are some other receivers that have the ability to reel that in. Stephon Diggs just happens to not be one of them. So, there's that. But yeah, and he mistargeted Diggs throughout the day. There was also another situation where he and Diggs were completely off in terms of chemistry. He threw a comeback. Diggs, ran up on a 9 and stuff like that. But I think that specific play is just an example of maybe what would have been sort of one of the biggest, game changers in terms of the way the rest of the game would have gone. Because the Vikings obviously play a lot different with a lead than they do with a deficit.
It's true, and then having a smallish lead in the first half is just a little different than being down 3 scores in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, although it wasn't as if the Vikings acted like they were down 3 scores in the fourth quarter, right?
Well, you always have hope, even in the final minutes as the Bears were driving. It's this could still potentially turn. There is still hope that someone will pick it off and run it back in, or sack fumble. I mean, it is the Bears we're talking about here. So
the problem I had is that the Vikings should have been more urgent, though. They didn't act as if there was a 3-score deficit, and because of that, they actually took way too much time to do stuff, and they were too willing to run the ball up the middle and waste clock time. And
Taking
they took
a
too
lot
long
of time to send Matt Asiata up the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. It took too long to huddle and call the play and get to the line of scrimmage and just do things offenses do. It took way too long. And so they really should have been more urgent.
Well, yeah, and they just displayed that sluggishness all through the game, it seemed like. And that, I don't know. Is that why Norv retired? Did he retire? He said apparently it's being reported that when asked why he resigned, he said he wanted to spend more time with his family. Which...
Oh, I didn't actually see the more time with his family. I just saw personal issues.
Oh.
Right. And then he also mentioned that the offense wasn't going in the right direction or whatever. which I actually kind of have some issue with that being a reason. I don't think that's the real reason. I do think that there was some pressure, and the way it sounded is that the pressure was pretty indirect. So it's not as if the Vikings like gave him an ultimatum, like retire or you're fired. I don't think it was that, or resign, I should say, because he said that, or he told some reporter. I don't think he told it like in a press or anything like that he wasn't retiring, just that he resigned. But if it's the case that he resigned because the offense wasn't going in the right direction, that would really rub me the wrong way, because it's just like, well, it's your fault. Fix it, man. You can't just like leave. You can't just beat Carroll out of here.
Whoops.
Like, it's bad away. Now. Bye. Like, seriously? I don't think that's what happened, so I'm not that upset. I think that there was, he saw pressure coming up from below with Pat Shurmur, basically being groomed as an offensive coordinator in waiting, potentially. He knew that there was like chatter about the way the offense was being run, not just, from like bloggers and sports writers and stuff like that, but also like within the building. I mean, we saw, instances where Zimmer was talking about the play calling offensively in public. We saw Sam Bradford talk about it right after the Eagles game. They were talking about like, hey man, doesn't it suck to get hit so much? And Bradford was like, yeah, it sucks to get hit so much. I wish I didn't get hit so much. And then he talked about like things that they could do to avoid that. He's like, yeah, a lot of it's on me. I got to get rid of the ball faster, but we should think about, and he used the word different schemes to get, the ball out to shorter routes. We got to pass protect better, but whatever, right? But like the fact that he used the phrase like maybe a couple of different schemes to get the quicker passing out there, I think is kind of telling that like people are pretty like willing to just say, hey, just like find ways to protect Bradford that involve like your end, not just the players playing better. We know some of them are bad. We can't really fix that at this point. So you have to find ways to at least not emphasize or stress weaknesses, and instead try to take advantage or hide those weaknesses or try to take advantage of different strengths. And he wasn't doing that, and there was chatter that he wasn't doing that. So I really think that he felt pressure from above, pressure, from within the building, and then pressure from below just by the mere existence of people like Pat Shurmur and Tony Sperano, who, very clearly have different philosophies when it comes to, what you should do with the ball and when it comes time to pass it. So I think all of those played a role. I don't think Zimmer ever did hold a conversation with Turner to be like, hey, we have to have like a long-term conversation about your role here. But I think, Zimmer did constantly put pressure on Turner in terms of like, you got to get this fixed, you got to get this fixed, you got to get this fixed, that sort of thing. So I think that he saw the writing on the wall and resigned, but I don't think anyone told him to resign. And I think that's very close to a firing, and I think it's very similar to, the Vikings kind of pushed him out, but I don't think it's the same thing.
Well, yeah, to hear you describe it, it's like a situation where it was just too uncomfortable for him to keep doing what he was doing, and that, if it kept up, then they would have that conversation, and Norv wouldn't. I mean, he would have to resign then. So if it really is going to be Pat Shurmur's offense, let him take the reins now. I mean, it worked pretty well for Detroit.
Yeah, when Jim Bob Cooter took over, it's probably maybe the best example of an offensive coordinator taking over. Partway through the season, we also saw Jim Caldwell do it for the Ravens in 2012, right before Joe Flacco's like insane run that ended up allowing him to bankrupt the Ravens. But yeah, the JBC change in Detroit has made huge gains for Stafford, who over that period of time, over the second half of the season, he was like second or third in the league in passer rating. And right now he's at the top of the league in terms of pass rate. I don't know what his like specific rank is, but he's like in like the top 8 for sure. And I think he's even better than that. Yeah, he's number 4.
Yeah, he's like, excuse me, he's like 4th or 5th on Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, and so,
and that's after an abysmal game last week. Like he'd be even higher if he had performed the way he has been this year, which is generally pretty lights out.
Yeah, so offensive coordinator changes can be good. And it was, I think everyone was surprised because no one had heard of Jim Bob Cooter, despite him already being on staff and having maybe the most distinctive name in football. But he got promoted and he ended up changing the offense wholesale. Even while Calvin Johnson was still there, the offense that we saw in the second half for Detroit is actually very similar to the offense we're seeing now, despite the fact that they lost like the dude, right? Like the person that you design offenses around. And so it wasn't that he designed a different offense, it's that he just like called plays that fit within his offensive philosophy. And I think that's what's going to happen with the Vikings. They're not going to, implement new terminology. They're not going to create new plays. I think that what they're just going to do is that they're going to create a different game plan every week. And in that game plan, they'll select a menu of plays that more closely resembles what Pat Shurmur's philosophy of offense is. And I'm going to try to do a lot more to learn what that philosophy of offense largely is, because it's going to be difficult to find out because, he didn't really have a ton of control of the offense in Philadelphia, although he was technically a play caller and he did design the passing game for Chip Kelly. But it's going to be fun to kind of like learn sort of what all that is. But it could potentially be like pretty significant.
So Pat Shurmur's offense is going to look, well, the lineups are going to look kind of the way they do now. But do you anticipate that we'll see what Vikings Twitter is clamoring for? And what Sam Bradford was probably alluding to in the press conference, like shorter drops and shorter routes, and maybe a little bit more spread out offense, maybe less reliance on Matt Asiata.
I think Vikings Twitter might see what they want to see. I think there's going to be like a lot of confirmation bias while watching the game, and I think that it'll also be very easy for us, and I'm including me in that, very easy for us to see a sack and be like, he should have changed the offense. What's he doing? He should have changed the offense. When maybe he did, right? Sometimes quarterbacks get sacked. Like it happens in other offenses too. I think that we are going to see some changes implemented relatively immediately. I think that we're going to see, because in the playbook, there's one-step drops and three-step drops and rollouts and sprint outs and, naked boots and, all kinds of, there's screen passes even. Like, I
are we going to go back to the halcyon days of our home opener? We won't have the same staff, but, will we see that kind of, because that stuff was working for Bradford, right? Like, he and Kyle Rudolph were hitting each other all day. Yeah, no, for sure. We saw that in the home opener. We saw that, I think, against the Giants were like 80%. 80%! That's an insane number. 80% of the dropbacks were, three-step, one-step, or a rollout. Like that's incredible. No team in the NFL over the course of a season, beat out 45% last year. And that was Kansas City. It was at like 44. And the Vikings were at like 20%. And if you got rid of rollouts, they were actually at 8%. It was an enormous change. It obviously worked. I think that was Bradford's best game by passer rating, something like 123.1 or something like that, like period, in his career. And so I think that we're going to see a lot of those plays. I think that those more closely resemble, Shurmur's theory of offense, which includes, and he's talked a lot about like what he's learned with Chip Kelly. Like it's very clear that that's changed him, and that's a good thing because his offenses have a very poor track record. But there's a lot there in terms of passing concepts that the ball can get out quickly in, like quick dropbacks and stuff like that. But there's also, stuff that, we've seen work within the Vikings offense. There's going to be a lot of crossers. And that's something we saw last year with Norv. We didn't actually see that much this year, but we saw that a lot last year with Norv. And that was actually a really successful concept when Teddy was throwing to like Mike Wallace or Charles Johnson over the middle. Despite neither of those receivers lighting the world on fire on crossers, they were both pretty good. And, Shurmur likes those. He's implemented those a lot. We might see some play design that's, a little bit more modern in terms of, what you do with bunch routes and pick routes and stuff like that. We're probably going to see, a little bit of wildcat just because it's been really successful for the Vikings, which is, nice to say because like last time, the Vikings implemented a gimmick offense for a couple of plays. It just didn't work out because I guess the Joe Webb Blazer package didn't strike fear into the hearts of men. I think that we're going to see like some play calling changes that will be representative of the philosophy changes. Interesting. So, do you think that Shurmur is going to be the guy? Like, you think he's interim for now, but will step into the position, or will there be? Is there anybody else the Vikings would want? Is Tony Sperano gonna get the knives out? Like, what does this portend for the future?
No, I think it is Shurmur. Shermer, a lot of people were correct about sort of like him potentially being the OC of the future. Like I think that they basically grabbed him to secure him for that role a little bit later on. So yeah, I think that after, unless like he craps the bed, I guess, but I think that next year he's going to be the offensive coordinator, the prohibitive offensive coordinator.
So does this mean a larger role for Tony Sperano?
I don't know, actually, because he actually had a pretty large role. I mean, every time Norv Turner has coordinated an offense, the offensive line coach has been, in charge of designing the running game, potentially even calling the running plays, like Clarence Shellman did with him at San Diego. I think that Sperano's going to have just as much control over the running game and stuff like that. I think that in the game plan, we might see stuff that's like, hey, Hillman and McKinnon are both like very, good at like, zone running. So let's implement more outside zone runs, and that'll be in the game plan. But I don't think that, Sperano's going to have any more responsibilities added or taken away in any realistic sense. He might have a louder voice in the game planning room, but other than that, no.
And that's probably fine, right?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So back to the Lions. Let's take a look at this week's matchup. Now, it was frustrating to me to lose to the Bears because that game was kind of supposed to be a gimme. As I was looking at the schedule in the preseason, like that was supposed to be an easy win, and then we fell on our faces. And Matt Stafford, in the 8 games he's played this season, has 5 games with a passer rating over 100, and 3 games with a passer rating over 128. And he managed to lose one of those games. That was when Green Bay put a bunch of points up on him.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that,
what a career.
Right. JBC has done, like we've talked about how there's actually 2 Matt Staffords. There's like really good Matt Stafford and really bad Matt Stafford. And
yeah, but he's been gunslinging a lot less. And so like the distinction between the two have like kind of folded in on themselves, the JBC.
Well, yeah, JBC has been able to like, I guess, enhance the appearance of good Matt Stafford and make him much more, likely to reveal himself in any given game situation.
Yeah, he's weighted the dice, basically. Like, when he summons a Matt Stafford, it's like, it's the good Matt Stafford, and he's weighted the dice so that the summons will be, like, correct. It's like, JBC is like a +4 to save, basically.
+4 bonus on 1d6?
Yeah.
No, not that good. In his other games, passer ratings of 89, 72, and 56. So I guess.
I will say this though: passer rating massively overrates Matt Stafford from a metric standpoint because there's a huge difference between, and a difference larger than I think any other quarterback in the NFL right now, between his passer rating and his adjusted yards per attempt, or his passer rating and like his PFF score, which is actually pretty high, and his passer rating and his adjusted net yards per attempt, which includes sacks and stuff like that. There's a huge difference, and the reason for that is because of how unusually, yak-centric this offense is. It's a yards after catch offense. It's one of 5 offenses in the NFL that has over 50% of its receiving yards come on the ground instead of in the air. That comes after the catch. And Detroit leads the league in the percentage of yards that come after catch. Because, and Matt Stafford, by far, more than any other quarterback in the NFL, even though I make fun of Carson Wentz, more than him even, has the lowest average depth of target. In fact, the gap between him and the next lowest depth of target, which, by the way, is Carson Wentz, is like half a yard, which is larger than any other gap between any set of passers. Consecutive set of passers, on that list. And that's enormous, right? So a lot... Passer rating overrates completions. Like a completion percentage is like part of its like calculation. And so because of that, it tends to overrate, passers that, generate a lot of like completions that may be empty. Golden Tate, for example, leads the league in, yards after catch. And, that's kind of who he was before he arrived in Detroit. Like, that's not like, oh, holy crap, when did that come from? But they've kind of like molded an offense around this concept. Marvin Jones ranks really highly in this statistic as well. In fact, if I take a look at the Pro Football Focus scores, Yeah, so Marvin Jones ranks 15th. Golden Tate ranks first out of like 85 receivers in yards after the catch per catch. So yeah, it's an offense that does overrate his passer rating a little bit, which is not to say that he hasn't been playing well. It is not to say that it's not a threatening offense, and it's not to say, that he doesn't deserve some plaudits. But it gives us a better character and understanding of why passer rating rates him so highly, while other measures, because the other measures aren't like, oh, he's secretly awful. He ranks 8th in adjusted net yards per, or 7th in adjusted net yards per attempt. So he's not like, they're not like hiding him. He's like clearly doing like stuff that's working. But it's interesting. And it's one of the reasons that he could be playing so well, and then the offense doesn't do much.
Well, and you even mentioned the Philadelphia game, for example, and we talked about this in the Philadelphia preview, like briefly. You would think that an offense with such short depth would play kind of to the Vikings' defensive strengths, but we didn't really see that against Philadelphia. And again, against Detroit, you would think that having a quarterback that relies on receivers to get yards after the catch would be more fish for Harrison, I guess, in this case. But
that's actually a pretty good point. I think in this case, we can, I guess, kind of bet on that again. Like, I was wrong before, but I swear I'm right when I say the same thing this time, kind of thing.
Because that was an aberration. It stands to reason, right? We're not crazy,
right? What? Hopefully. So yeah, no, I think that it still plays to the strengths of the Vikings defense. I think that you've got pretty decent tackling corners, maybe not the best in the NFL, but certainly the top third. Like they're in the top 8 in terms of the ability to, when they attempt to tackle, make that tackle. And that comes from like Football Outsiders' is like premium chartings on broken tackles and stuff like that. Generally speaking, the Vikings very good with their secondary tackling, and Harrison Smith is obviously like a huge part of that. It should play to their strengths, but they do need to be careful because we saw what happened in the Eagles game, and you need to be careful too because I think Theo Riddick is healthy for this game, and that's a big problem in terms of like elusivity and the ability to break tackles and stuff like that. He may be more of a threat in terms of after catch ability than Golden Tate is. Like it's he does a really good job of catching the ball relatively further downfield than a lot of running backs, and he still generates like some pretty decent yards after the catch as a result. And he's like a big part of the passing game. He's gotten like 34 receptions. He's been targeted 42 times. He's got over 260 yards, and he's played like one fewer game. So than a lot of the guys that are ranked with them. So that's something to watch out for too. The linebackers need to tackle well, and they haven't been. So even if the Vikings take care of Marvin Jones and Golden Tate in terms of tackling them after the catch, you still have to worry about Kendricks and Barr and potentially Greenway doing the same thing. So there's a lot at play, and I think that's what we saw in the Eagles game where Darren Sproles and Ryan Matthews made hay, generating yards after the catch against linebackers instead of against receivers. And Jordan Matthews did a decent job generating yards after the catch in the Vikings game too. But that's just like part of it.
Indeed. I think that's about all I got. I don't want to double up on questions that people are asking in the mailbag, and we've actually got a pretty good one from the new Loch Ness Monster defender. James sends in a pretty complicated question about the offense, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Do you have any items of note that you want to warn us about / discuss before we turn to the mailbag?
Not that I can think of.
Again, this is a game that we should win, that we could easily win, but you never know. And it like you were saying, it's going to turn on the linebackers, right? If they step up, we win. If they don't, then we probably don't.
Yeah, I remember Lions running backs just doing a good job against Chad Greenway over the past 3 years a lot, and so that's like embedded in my mind now.
Oh. Well, that's no good. So James sends his question in by email, which you can do as well. norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. It's the address you want. He writes in, "Hello and thanks for the continually great content." Well, that's awfully generous of you. I have a few questions for the podcast I am hoping you can cover. The Vikings have been under siege with pressure the past 2 weeks, but have shown an inability to effectively adjust play calling to counter. For example, in the Bears game, off my memory, the Vikings threw 0 wide receiver screens until the final play, 0 halfback draws, 1 stretch run, 0 end arounds, few if any drag routes, 0 halfback shovel passes. Conversely, the Bears executed a shovel pass for a large gain, called approximately 2 halfback screens, 0 quarterback rollouts, and only attempted to significantly increase the tempo on 1 play. Assuming
it's quite the memory, James.
I know how precise. Assuming the offensive line doesn't improve drastically, could an adjustment to include significantly more of the above play calling lead to offensive success? I mean, we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, no, we mentioned some of these. The crossing routes and drag routes are something that Pat Shurmur likes to implement. They're definitely in the playbook. We know that. And so we may see some of them called a little bit more often. We may see more quarterback rollouts. We saw, a little bit of that in Philadelphia. That's like a threat, but, Bradford's a little bit more immobile. So we may not see as many of those rollouts. The thing with quarterback rollouts is that they protect the quarterback for sure for a limited period of time, and then they expose him to a ton of risk. It's not like it's like just a jump after a period of time, and then it cuts the field in half, and so you only have to defend half the field. So we may not see a ton of those, but yeah, no, I think that we're going to see, maybe a couple of halfback draws. That was really popular in Philadelphia. Again, I don't know if Shurmur's done that, in like Cleveland or wherever, but it's something to keep track of. I think that we're going to see more stretch runs. I mentioned that Jerick McKinnon and Ronnie Hillman are both, much better in zone running, which makes sense. I mean, Hillman comes from a zone system. McKinnon comes from like an option system. We may see more end arounds. I don't know. I think we're definitely going to see more wide receiver screens, halfback screens, and potentially tight end screens. Shovel passes, those just come from like improvisation, and Bradford is just not an improvisational passer in the same way Teddy is. So we may not see those. But yeah, no, I think that we're going to see more of the things that you listed in your list, James, that might potentially help the Vikings. I don't know how much more. It may be, very little in terms of like the percentage of plays, especially for each individual one. But I do think we're going to see more of them.
He goes on to write, could intermittently increasing the tempo of the offense help in dealing with pressure and in rushing effectiveness?
Yeah, I think so, because the defense doesn't get set when you're up tempo, and it tires out defensive linemen a lot more, and it makes it difficult for them to like accurately gauge the situation to determine whether or not they're going to mush the rusher, whether or not they're going to be a pure pass rusher, whether they have to read the play versus whether they have to like set the edge on the run and stuff like that. And they are forced into a more basic defense. That basic defense is a little bit easier to scout and therefore attack. Obviously, there's a lot of flip sides to it. Otherwise, every team would be doing a hurry up, no huddle offense. But and some of those flip sides, include the fact that it actually really drastically reduces the size of your own playbook and becomes pretty simple to counter once they figure out what you're doing. You limit yourself to the personnel that you have on the field, which may not be appropriate in some situations. That sort of stuff. But I do think that at times, and you mentioned in your email the word intermittently, I think that at times, if you increase the tempo of the offense, you definitely have the ability to alleviate some of that pressure and have the ability to increase the effectiveness of the running game, both at once. And I think that it would be good to implement those.
And finally, how effective would rushing and passing out of shotgun more often be?
The Vikings are in shotgun a lot already. I don't know how much more effective it would be. They did do some under center running for like Asiata, and a little bit, not really that much for McKinnon, but they do a ton of shotgun nowadays.
All right. Matt in Wisconsin writes in, why do so many Bradford passes get deflected? Isn't he tall or something?
Actually, not that many get deflected relative to the rest of the league. Osweiler's get deflected a lot, and he's pretty tall. A lot of that has to do with rushing lanes. It's kind of interesting. You take a look at Drew Brees. I think his rookie and second year, before his injury, he led the league in like passes batted down, and then when he moved over to New Orleans, he like led the league in passes batted down, and then he fixed it. And he actually has been consistently since then, since like his first year in New Orleans, after that, he's been consistently, among the league leaders in having the fewest percentage of his passes batted down. A lot of that has to do with just finding your throwing lanes to make sure that you can throw in areas where the defensive linemen aren't. A lot of that has to do with having a quick release, which Bradford, he doesn't have a slow one, but he doesn't have like an uncommonly quick release. And a lot of that has to do with like the release point on your trajectory in terms of where your throw is. Like a lot of passers that are tall, like Matt Castle, throw down instead of up and out, and that increases the likelihood of batted passes.
Well, there you go. Jacob Coast at TheMoCash on Twitter. You can tweet us your questions, by the way, at NorseCodeDN, assuming you do not already follow us if you're on Twitter. Anyway, Jacob writes, has Sperano been helping or hurting the offensive line this year? And would it have been better with Davidson?
I don't think it would have been better with Davidson. It's just hard to tell, right? Because Matt Khalil, played one game healthy, played one game on an enormously bad hip. That was the one against Green Bay, and then he's on IR after that. TJ Clemmings was forced to play. Andre Smith plays without competition at right tackle because Phil Lodehill retires, then he gets injured. It's like difficult. Like you can't just be like, well, TJ Clemmings plays like ass. Like she played like ass last year, right?
Right.
You can't be like, well,
it's not the coordinator's
Davidson
fault.
surely would have fixed this. Like, but you take a look at the play of someone like Brandon Fusco, who has definitively, even after a bad second half, improved over last year, where he was a really terrible guard. I don't know if that's because of Sperano. It could be because last year he was recovering from a torn pectoral injury and didn't have all of his strength back. It certainly looked like that for a while. So I don't think Davidson necessarily would have been better. I don't think Sperano's at fault for a lot of the offensive line issues. Yeah, that's all I got.
That's fine. And John Judich at Gazanked on Twitter writes, is The Nightmare Before Christmas more of a Halloween movie or more of a Christmas movie?
It's a Christmas movie. I think.
I think it's one of those movies that does double holiday duty. I think you can watch it at Halloween, but
you got to pick one. That's the nature of the question. Is you have to pick one.
I know. I know.
In spirit, but I know. If you picked one,
I think it's both. But if I picked one, I would say Christmas.
All right.
You interrupted me as I was about to say, if I had to pick one, it would be Christmas.
Yeah, because like, what good is hedging if someone doesn't get to like force you into it?
No, it's a Christmas movie. It's not the best Christmas movie, which everybody knows is Die Hard.
I'm not going to disagree with you, by the way. I'm just
I
enjoyed like how definitive you were about that.
Well, I'm very enthusiastic about it. I think what Christmas really needs is more explosions.
Wasn't Die Hard 4 also a Christmas movie? Were all the Die Hards Christmas movies?
No, I think one of them was like a 4th of July affair.
Lame.
Yeah, but still fireworks. I don't know, but like Christmas needs more of that. I think it's a welcome antidote to a Charlie Brown Christmas. Which music, great. Television show, less so. There's your hot take for today. Charlie Brown Christmas, not that great.
Yeah, I don't know how hot that is. We agree on that, at least.
I know. I feel like these are all like pretty popular opinions that I'm like exclaiming as though they're not like mainstream. Yeah. Oh, well.
Is that it for the mailbag?
Well, I mean, there were a bunch of variations on the same couple of themes that we addressed, like in line in the show. Like, are we going to see massive changes to the offense? No changes to the offense? More or less of the things that people do or don't like about what happened the last couple of weeks. And,
I think they will eliminate the offense as a unit. No more offense.
They'll just send the defense out again.
Yeah, and they're like, you can have the ball. Just now, Harrison Smith's on the field.
Oh, actually, that's funny. Mike Raver at the real Mike Raver on Twitter writes in, is it good strategy to give up on 3rd and short in hopes of having our defense score a touchdown on the next set of downs?
Potentially.
Forget punting on 4th and 3. We should be punting on 3rd and 3.
Yeah, that way we'll definitely get good field position so long as it's not shanked.
As as long as we can count on good Jeff Locke, then we can field them inside the 20 and just like give ourselves all the chances to win that we possibly can.
That's kind of an underrated story, incidentally, isn't it? Jeff Locke's been like pretty good. I still think his first game was bad and everyone called it good, but he's been good since then.
No, I agree with you. I was not that impressed with game one. I was like, oh, here we go, Jeff Locke. But I mean, since then, you know, I keep making jokes about, you know, Jeff Locke punting 40 yards, and then he just keeps like he's hitting it far and hitting it fairly accurately comparatively. So good job, Jeff Locke. All right. Well, wow, that was brief. I think we're all kind of exhausted from all the Norv Turner like non-news, but you know it's nice to see that the ship will be, I guess, steered pretty much the same way. Hopefully a little more on course, but you know nothing drastic.
Yeah, well, yeah, nothing drastic, but certainly changes.
Now you just made me think of David Bowie.
I'm sorry.
So that's going to do it for episode number 158 of Norse Code. What's coming up next for you? Do you have a long form article about Norv Turner that you're about to publish?
Probably not about Norv. Maybe about Pat. I don't know when I'll get that published. The problem is like, because the game was on Monday instead of on Sunday, and the resignation therefore happened on Tuesday, and I had to like rework an article I was already writing for Tuesday because of the news. I'm like 2 days behind instead of like 1 day or 0 days, and so like I would have wanted to have a Pat Shurmur article up, 9 hours before this recorded. But
literally yesterday.
Yeah. So, you know, I'd be like, yeah, no, there's going to be a Pat Shurmur, but like I've got like other stuff to write. I'm probably going to ditch my offensive line article for this week, fold it into basically my advanced stats article, and do enough research for Pat Shurmur. Hopefully I have an article by like Friday morning, which is when a lot of people will be listening to this. But I am not optimistic about that possibility. I'll effort to do it, though.
And that's all we can ask for the number one useful human who Jay-Z Hoodie asked on Twitter. I didn't want to ask you during the mailbag, but he was like, if Arif starts underperforming on Norse Code, who do you replace him with? And I honestly have no idea.
You have to promote from within, right? So, like...
Yeah, but, like, you are...
Is James's kid any good?
I mean, probably, but he's a little kid. Like, so you bring a unique combination of, like, deep background knowledge and an ability to drive me just, like, absolutely crazy sometimes.
That's true.
And that's a difficult... I can get one or the other. And I don't know which side, like, James's kid would fall on just yet, but I'm gonna
gamble on the second, but I guess I can't be sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just don't think that he has the je ne sais quoi necessarily to replace you yet. But you know, we'd hire him on as an assistant useful human.
It's true. Like,
and then maybe that would light a fire under
usefulness coordinator.
You. Yeah, exactly. Assistant usefulness coordinator. Now that
get earn those stripes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then how else would you know that your job is in danger? If all of a sudden other people just start hiring assistants for you, like, how useful are you really? That you have to have a director of usefulness? No.
I mean, delegation is extremely useful. I don't know if you knew this,
but trust me, I do. Why do you think we keep James around?
Oh, that's a good point.
I'm just kidding. You can find James on Twitter at Big Mono. He's also the operator of the official Norse Code Twitter account, a responsibility that I happily delegated to him, which you can find, like I said, at Norse Code DN. Arif is at Arif Hassan NFL, and I am at Dusty O'Connell. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Daily Norseman. DailyNorseman.com is also kind enough to host every episode of Norse Codes. You can go back and listen to our multi-year archive. Even the episodes on SoundCloud are still there, I believe. And
out of control, man.
I know. It's just, it never ends. Well, and now that like the Vikings are, a legitimately good team, it attracts more attention, and it's honestly more fun to cover. Like, I feel so much. It is.
Well, so I would actually be like maybe okay covering like a bad team if they weren't like bad in literally the exact same way every time. It was just like, yeah, the offensive line sucked again. I don't know what to tell you.
We got a lame quarterback. You can't throw the ball downfield. Sorry.
Yeah. No deep ball, no protection.
Could be worse. We could be hosts of a Browns podcast. That would be tough. Although I suppose you probably have to develop like gallows humor. I think it'd be fun to host like a Jaguars podcast.
Oh, that's true. There is a Browns podcast called The Brown Note, and that's just genius.
I feel like that might make some people afraid to listen to it.
Well, I mean, that's like that's the idea. Fun, right? That's the thrill of danger. Listen to it on the way to work. Don't bring an extra pair of pants. Like, who knows?
Right? You're on your way to a wedding that you're in. I'm already in my tux, but the bus won't get there for like another 2 hours. No. But yeah, so Daily Norseman, check out our episode catalog, which you can also find at norsecodepodcast.com, our semi-official website with links to Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to YouTube and get notifications whenever new episodes appear. And you can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. I think that's all the promotional stuff. Oh yeah, paypal.me/NorseCode or patreon.com/NorseCode if you would like to join the Norse Code family, keep the Loch Ness Monster at bay, and help us keep our lights on. And we will adjourn for this week. I think we managed to cram a busy week's worth of news into just under an hour. So we'll come back next week after the Lions game, and then again for a preview of Week 10. Until then, our formula is, for the time being, spoons out.
Norse Code is the official podcast of the Daily Norseman SB Nation blog and is produced with cooperation from Pompous Jerk Productions. Pompous Jerk Productions. Attitude with attitude. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of their contributors and do not reflect official positions of the Minnesota Vikings, SB Nation, the Daily Norseman staff, or PJP. No information in this podcast should be construed as gambling advice. Please obey all local gaming laws.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.